Welcome to PromZ Vak for the second time out of Germany, Düsseldorf. We're at the home of Michael Frater, General Director of the PSI. And we're here because he's gonna leave the PSI and do something completely different, but he stays in the business, and we're very curious about what he's going to do. But first, Michael, thank you for having us.
Welcome.
Can you tell me how you got into the business?
Into the business, which is now 13 years ago. Yeah, it was a funny story when I came into the business. I was at a show in the public sector where I used to work for a sister company of Reed Exhibitions, and we did solutions for the public sector, for the state of Germany, for cities. And at that show, I had a coffee with my colleague, Hayo. He was at that time already CEO of Reed Exhibitions. And somewhere, somehow in this conversation, nobody knows anymore, he asked me, maybe I have something interesting for you. Why don't you come over to Düsseldorf in January? I show you a very nice show, an amazing show called PSI. I said, PSI, never heard of that. What is that sector for? And he said, yeah, it's in the promotional article industry. I said, okay, I'm a buyer. I buy promotional items here in my marketing department, but never heard of that. So yeah, I visited him at PSI. And honestly, it was really the truth. I was really, really impressed. It was an absolutely amazing visit of a show. So many brands, so many products, so many categories, so many nice people. It was really fun. And then he explained me what PSI is in depth with all these services around and beside the show. And do you like it? You want to do it as managing director? I said, yes. So that's a long story short. And I started in July 2008 at PSI, shortly before the financial crisis came.
You're known as Mr. PSI. Everybody knows you. You're a really like a networking guy. Can you tell me what you did at PSI to get that image? Because people in the industry thought PSI was a bit of an arrogant organization, and you turned that completely around. Can you tell me how you did it?
Yeah, I mean, my approach from the beginning is, in general, my approach is talking to people to understand their businesses, to understand the industry. And the first thing I did was I made appointments with distributors, with very small distributors. And then I went over to the supplier side, to manufacturers, to importers. And I did a lot of personal conversations. And I know this is really my strength, talking to people, as you mentioned, networking. And I brought them together. And one of the first big milestones was, not sure if I should say that here, but it was the Oktoberfest in 2008, where I invited a lot of people I didn't know so far. And there were fantastic people there, and a lot of those people who I met there for the first time are still not only contacts, not only customers, they're really friends from today's perspective. And so that was the starting point. And I always tried to bring them together, because my feeling was also an observation that distributors as well as suppliers don't meet very often over the year. It was a show, a big platform, of course, but at that time they had to do business. And so I tried to bring in new formats, new ideas, PSI talks, stuff like that, to bring the people together to talk. And that also, especially on an international base, not only Europe, including also the US. And that made me also understand the business quite well, I think.
Can you tell us a bit, because 13 years is a long time, can you tell us a bit about how the market changed over the years?
Sometimes it feels the market did not change over the years. In certain behaviors or things. But of course, there's a huge change. I mean, those days, especially when I look back to my first PSI show in 2009, which was the biggest show ever until today, with huge stands, with booths of 1,800 square meters. Companies like PF Concept presented themselves in an unbelievable way at that time. But that has changed because the markets had changed. I mean, if you look to the tendencies you had even in those days, where online became to play an important role. And if I compare it to those days until today, it's digitization, it's sustainability. Those are two major, I don't want to say buzzwords, it's two very important factors also for the future of the industry. I think people talk much more intensive, but the main thing that has been changed, and this is the main issue of the industry, the whole branch has become 100% transparent. That was a time when the first onliners started, online businesses. You had in Asia, Alibaba came up over the years, and with the globalization, traveling was not a big issue. Flying over to Hong Kong, to Asia was not an issue. So you find the whole industries all over the globe on the Hong Kong gift show. Everybody was importing, so the whole value chain has been disrupted completely. And in this combination with digitization, the situation today is completely different to those days. And then you have an additional factor which is really an issue for the industry: more legislation. You have so many different laws, from product safety to competitive laws. It's so much you have to understand, and you have to be aware of that it's really a huge challenge for everybody who is acting in this industry. So that is a huge difference to 2008 or those days until today.
Mm-hmm. Last year you became most important person of the year, and it was also the year that they announced that you were going to leave PSI. Can you tell us a bit about what you're going to do in the future?
Yes, sure. I mean, of course, 20 was not the best years of my life, even that I became this International Person of the Year. That was a big honor for me on one side. On the other side, COVID did the rest and gave us a rest, especially in the exhibition business. So when that became public that I will leave PSI, I got a lot of positive reactions from the market, and that was also good for my mental health, honestly. And one of the main feedbacks was, Michael, why don't you stay in the industry? Please continue in networking, bringing the people together, doing business with the industry, creating business, in creating contacts, matchmaking. That's what your strength is. And then I thought about that, and then I came to the conclusion that it might be a good idea, what we will see in the next years, in to have this significant change in my life in this age, becoming 60 this year. To start completely from scratch is absolutely a challenge for me, but then I decided, okay, I will do that, and I will start with, let's say, 2 pillars. One of the pillars is what we already mentioned, what I talked about, business development and an international network. This will become a very exciting thing. I think you will hear more about that in the next coming month. And the second thing is what I do really from my heart is fighting for sustainability, especially in our industry here. You've seen that when I started and when I founded with sustainability, the Sustainability Awards in 2015. This is something which I do, as I said, from the heart, but not only for that reason. I think the success factors for the future of this industry are mainly two drivers. It's digitization and it is sustainability. And this is something everybody has to take very, very serious. It's not an option. Sustainability, we all see it on the climate, that is one thing. Yeah? There has to be changed something. And sustainability in our industry has to become part of the business model of each company. It doesn't matter if it's a service provider, a distributor, or a supplier, manufacturer, importer. And the easiest argumentation for that is that the behavior of the customer is changing. That is a fact. Behavior of customers are changing. People are buying electrical cars. People are taking much more care on sustainable buying in their whole life. And this is something you cannot ignore. You have to have it in your business. And in this combination, sustainability and digitization go hand in hand. The digitization of processes, business processes, is one of the key success factors. And when we see what we have today in our industry, beside bespoking solutions, you have printing on demand, you have, artificial intelligence is coming more and more a technology driver in all the industries. And in our industries, it can become a real success factor. So again, digitization and sustainability hand in hand, this is absolutely key in those changing markets, changing situations we have and we face today, including COVID.
And that's the business you're going to get in.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go back a bit and go to the PSI, because everybody in the industry knows that there's a competitor, a French organization organizing a fair in Essen on the same date as PSI. What do you think about that?
Well, I think I have a clear opinion about that. If I start a new product or a service or even a new show, there has to be a demand from the market. And in this case, there is no need and demand from the market. The only reason to do this competitive show is to attack the PSI. And this is it can't be in the interest of the industry, and it can't be in the interest of the exhibitors. And this is my personal view, but I talk to a lot of suppliers who are anyway exhibitors at the shows and especially at PSI. Nobody wants to support that. It makes no sense. An industry needs a number one show, it needs an international show. We will see where it's going in the next years due to COVID and past COVID. We will see if shows and exhibitions will take place in the same way as we knew it from the days before. But face-to-face is absolutely a need, that is no question. But we don't need more number one shows or tries and attempts of shows who wants to become this. Anyway, we have too many activities in this sector. If you look back to the last couple of years with hundreds of house shows, regional shows, road shows, it's too much. The cake is not getting bigger. It's only the pieces are getting smaller. So no, there's no need for this kind of attempts and attacks.
And it's bad for business overall.
Absolutely, I totally agree on that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And talking about the future of fairs, you think there's going to be some kind of hybrid form, or because you just said the need for face-to-face is clear, it's going to stay there forever, but do you think the market's going to change?
Yeah, the need for face-to-face is absolutely there. It's a social thing. It's a thing for mankind. But I think exhibitions will change. In which way exactly we will see. I believe that the recovery of this industry will take some time, maybe until 23. I think the future will be more hybrid events, because everybody has seen it works quite well with Zoom and Teams meetings on a global base. So the question is, if there are no more travel restrictions, the people will travel less, even if they could. I think that could be an issue for the exhibition business. But I think it can become smaller formats, new formats, but exhibitions will arise again. And I mean, especially in our industry, it's a people business on one side. On the other side, it's a haptical business. Yeah, you need your senses. You have to feel it, you have to touch it, you have even to smell it. So this makes no sense to do sourcing on a digital way. Digital can support here in this way, of course, but it has to be a face-to-face event. Yeah.
Well, let's end with this positive thought. Thank you very much for having PromZ over, Michael. We will follow you in the future for sure. You want to know more about this discussion we're having? Please look at the next PromZ Vak, because there will be a large article with Michael in it. So look at your mailbox and read PromZ Vak. Thank you very much.